get in the sort of the swell of the emotion and to put Trump's story on the back burner. And I'll be right back.
Oh yeah.
Well, I do want to push back on the pushback. I don't think it's one incident. I don't think the shooting is what put Trump in the position of being a leader. He was beating Biden. He was, because that's kind of how you guys are making it seem.
Trump was the debate did it. The debate.
Yeah, but I want to let me finish what I said, because you literally said about the one thing. So I want to make it very clear. It's not the one thing. Trump was killing Biden all throughout, right? He was, if Biden was running the race, Trump would destroy Biden. I think the assassination, even lit a match and made him even more popular. But I think what I keep saying about peaking early, we kept saying he's peaking now. It would have been better if he would have peaked in maybe October. Now she's peaking. And like Viva's saying, her peak may not be as high, but I would rather Trump have peaked in October than in July. And I'm hoping this RFK thing and August. And I'm hoping.
No, but I'm saying it was July. Nate, you're right, but it's August now. Any calculation about peaking early
is premature.
You don't even have the discussion until Labor Day.
No, well,
just that we're living in the constant real-time news cycle, so everything is exaggerated. And of course, we have to generate content based on exactly, we're always, assuming that whatever we know now is just a mini version of what we're going to know in the future, but.
Because I always say, like when Trump was up in the polls, we were all sitting here, polls, great. Trump is up in every poll. Now Trump is down. It's like, oh, we can't trust the polls. I'm just saying, I think there's an ebb and flow in this whole thing, and I do believe Trump. I believe this RFK endorsement may now put him back. But again, the media now is probably going to suppress that too.
I'll tell you one thing. I am skeptical of the polls and don't trust the polls. So when the polls are forced to admit Trump is in the lead, I think it's even better than what they say, because I still don't trust them. And then when they say Kamala's bounced back. Kamala's best day, the DNC or the Democrats' best day, was yesterday, and maybe today, because they're going to try to use that speech and build it into what it wasn't. But they're not going to have any more bouncing after this. It's all good. It's going to be downhill, because she's not going to get anything more than a scripted 40 minutes of uninterrupted, unchallenged verbal diarrhea, and enjoy the bounce. And if it doesn't bounce back hard today, RFK is certainly going to put some damper on that.
If I can jump in real quick to that point, Viva, look, so the assassination is actually back in the news cycle today. I got a message from a producer of Fox News a little while ago asking me if I could come on this afternoon at 3:30 to talk about the Secret Service agents that have now been suspended. Okay.
Yep.
And so this, because I guess it was, negligence, malfeasance, whatever. And so that story is now at least.
I thought they were put on administrative leave, Phil. Hold on. I thought they were put on administrative leave, not technically suspended at this point.
Well, I mean, that's.
I'm just saying.
That's the same thing.
Apparently, it's. I believe that it implies or suggests culpability, or at least dereliction.
Well, it's notwithstanding the fact that, look, if this were a private security company, these people would have been fired immediately, because you can't put your guy on stage and let him go on stage knowing that there's an actual threat out there, right? It's just the kind of malfeasance, and it's beyond negligence. It's just incompetence. At the least, it's incompetence, maybe worse. But in any event, you can't have those people on the job, at least in any kind of operational capacity. Some type of suspension, whatever you call it, should have happened immediately. And we don't need to be waiting 6 weeks. I think they did it today, probably because there was this business out of Arizona yesterday where local law enforcement identified a threat, conveyed it to Secret Service, who apparently did nothing. But for whatever it's worth, the Trump assassination is back in the news cycle now, the day after the DNC.
Well, it'll be interesting too. I think personally that the RFK endorsement helps solidify the assassination topic as well, for obvious reasons. But I think that RFK endorsement is very important, because it at least potentially puts back votes that Trump may have gotten. Because RFK, I genuinely feel, and his vice president said that they were taking votes away from Trump. That was a fact. I've been saying it for a while. People kept denying it, saying, no. He's the Democrats. Like, believe me, the Democrats hate RFK Jr. more than they do Trump. I mean, he is an apostate to the party.
That's right. I mean, you have to always remember the Democrats are a Bolshevik-style party, loyalty to the top, and absolute unity are the highest values. Reagan's 11th commandment applies to Democrats far better than it ever will to Republicans.
Now,
But
Andre,
I hope you guys are right with the RFK thing. But you know, if
it's hard to understand, right, Nate?
RFK because it's not. I don't think he's moving Democrats, and I don't think he's moving independents. Right? He's moving a small amount of voters, and maybe if Trump gets that bump, he may push him. But right now, I think is what you're looking at, and that's what we expect the thing going into November.
If you look at where RFK had the traction, Nate, it's in battleground states. RFK holds around 4% in Michigan, and we're talking about, I think, Kamala 2 or 3 ahead or whatever. But if you look at the battleground states where 1 to 4% is huge, RFK's holding those numbers.
Yeah, but you'd have to assume all of that was going to Trump. She could get none of that because some of those RFK voters are Democrats who are voting for RFK too. So you'd have to assume he's getting the whole 4%.
I don't think he will. My thing is that I think he'll get a chunk of them, which helps a lot. And when you're talking about an area, I mean, even 0.5% makes a big difference. So let's say that he only gets 20% of RFK's votes. Well, that's still something. And if the rest of them just stay home, well, then they're not voting.
And does that mean Trump? Does that mean Rogan? Because Rogan says he'll never vote for Trump. He's going to vote for RFK. But
that's not true.
Does that mean he's going to? Well, he said he doesn't like Trump. He says he doesn't. Matter of fact, I played a clip. Want me to get the clip?
Go get it.
Doesn't like Trump and all that stuff.
Yeah, go get it, because I mean he's backpedaled on that because
he backpedaled. Well, hold on. You just said he didn't say it. Now you're saying he's backpedaling. So which is it? He never said it. Or
you're saying that it's a.
I'm saying he said it. No, I'm saying that's what he said, but now you're saying he backpedaled. So I'm trying to make sure.
I'm saying
he backpedaled or he never said.
Okay, hold on.
Okay, no, I'm asking.
I know that Joe Rogan has supposedly endorsed RFK.
Okay.
He backpedaled on that when he was criticized pretty widely, and he said, "No, I did not endorse him. I just like the guy."
Yeah. Well, he didn't. He never endorsed him in the first place, and he's said he's been critical and praiseworthy of Trump, but he was praiseworthy of RFK, and that's when people thought it was an endorsement. But the bottom. First of all, RFK took votes from both sides. True. Obviously, the Democrats didn't want him there for some reason because they were fighting him much more. They were fighting him, and Trump wasn't. Trump was criticizing him from time to time. Yeah. Bottom line, just assume he has 5% of the national vote, which I don't think is a tough thing to believe. It might even be more. If he drops out and has said the things he said about the Democrats and endorses Trump, I mean, nothing's a game over thing here at all. And like Bongino says, bring 10 friends and make them vote, unless you're Canadian, in which case you can just recommend people vote. But dude, it's gonna be amazing.
Andre, you're so quiet. Hold on, we got to get Andrea into the conversation.
Oh yeah,
I don't.
Andrea can take care of herself when she's got something to say. We're going to hear
Ron.
from her. Yeah. I know.
As long as he takes care of Andrea.
Anything.
I don't know. Well, okay, she's strategically avoiding the topic.
I honestly, Eric, it's not strategic at all. I just have to tell you, politics are not my thing. It's not to. I'm not saying anything.
I love it. I've never seen someone quite so uncomfortable.
Just for me personally, it is one of the most boring possible frameworks through which to look at the world. You know, the which side are you on kind of thing. It doesn't matter. You know, you're voting for this guy's shadow state or that guy's shadow state. I mean, does it matter at this point?
Fair enough.
My thought was this, and I don't know, Eric, if you want to share my screen that I just added down there. I put this on Twitter earlier today, and I thought it was an interesting point. There was a guy, Joe Jorgensen, who was the Libertarian candidate in 2020. So in 2020, so the Jorgensen was. It looks like what this says in the article was that got more votes in Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin than Donald Trump lost those states by. Yeah. So if you look at it in that context, I mean, this RFK was not necessarily running as a libertarian, but a third party nevertheless. But I think the point is valid that it doesn't take much to, especially if it's really, really close, like in these swing states. And I think Georgia, by the way, is now a swing state. It wasn't before Harris got in, and now it's kind of in the toss-up area. So that little boost could literally be what puts somebody like Trump over the line. That's just.
Sorry, before I leave, Georgia was not a toss-up state before. What was it before? I think I'm.
It was solidly leaning red. Yeah,
with Biden, and it was hardcore.
Yeah, because nobody wanted Biden, but you got a lot of the leftists that are like, "Oh, Kamala, yeah, we'll take her," and so then they've.
Yeah. As if they haven't seen what DEI hires do to systems in Georgia already. All right. Well,
I never said they were smart.
Well, interestingly enough, Brian Kemp, who has been no help to Trump whatsoever, I guess last night they embraced and had a big old hug out. And now Brian Kemp is on the MAGA train. So Georgia is in play for the, shall we say, Rhino contingent.
So let me speak to that since I'm in Georgia.
Hold on, I got to check out, people. I apologize. Enjoy the stream, and I will see you all sooner than later.
Thanks for coming, David.
Yeah, so Georgia, Brian Kemp is in Georgia. I would say he's considerably more universally liked, particularly by the Republicans, than perhaps the Secretary of State might be. There are a lot of folks in the MAGA camp that still despise him and all this, but for whatever that's worth, he is generally well liked by all sectors of the Republicans, and he's won statewide office here now twice, and he's probably gearing up to run for Senate when his term is over. So he still has a statewide political apparatus that is very effective. It's well oiled, and if he can take that and turn that ground game, so to speak, that apparatus, and use it for the benefit of the national ticket, then I think that can still go a long way towards helping Donald Trump in November. Yeah. And I think it's important to remember that these two have had it's an ongoing feud back to when Trump was president. He didn't appoint who the governor didn't appoint who Trump wanted to fill a vacant Senate seat. Okay. And so it goes back a long ways. And then there was this whole thing about Georgia was one of the first states to sort of reopen early in the spring of 2020. And Donald Trump came out and said, I think it's a terrible idea. So they had some heartburn over that. And the feud has just continued. And I think that after Trump's last campaign stop in Atlanta, where he really went after Governor Kemp, I think some people probably who have Trump's ear said, look, you need to walk this back, because you're not going to be helpful. You guys can pick up your feud if you want in December, but between now and November, let's chill out.
Apparently they did get together though. And like I said, but supposedly there's, a physical embrace, literally they hugged each other publicly. So they're sending the signal that, hey, we're cool. At least for the moment. So that is obviously an important sign. Georgia's a battleground state, in my opinion, and Trump lost it last round.
Well, they got to put that behind them, at least for the time being. Bury the hatchet, and I don't mean bury it between each other's shoulder blades either. They have to literally bury the hatchet, and for the good of the party. And I think that's where they are.
All right, I want to shift gears to. Andrea, anything going on with oh God, I forgot his name, Brian Koberger or whatever?
Yeah, well, so next week we've got the hearing on the motion to change venue. So we've got the defense motion now. The state's response was just filed over the last week. We'll get a reply, in the next few days. But that one is, I think, going to be pretty significant, just because. I mean, I guess it depends on your perspective and how likely you think it is that the guy can get a fair trial at this point of time, and whether there's, any place that's really better than others. What the defense did in this particular case that I think was it's extremely effective, very next level kind of performance, is they got this professional surveyor basically to come in and do a community survey And so they just compared the kinds of responses that they got from folks in Latah County, the attitudes. It's basically an attitudes survey. Did some surveys in comparative counties to, try to compare and see if it's a little bit better. And, the results are very... Yeah,
I'm sorry, Andrew. Just FYI, I mean, I'm involved in some sort of related litigation involving such an expert report in one of the January 6th cases, in the Joe Biggs case, which was submitted as evidence in support of a venue motion for Joe Biggs, but of course in the District of DC, which is the court that venue motions are presumably the most meritorious, never grants them. So, but it is apparently, as you say, the next level. It's the new state of the art on venue motions. So it's going to the denial of that, because Joe is in prison, will end up being appealed to the equally incompetent DC Circuit Court of Appeals, where it will die a miserable death.
Well, thank you for that. Well, it is. I mean, that's a problem really with venue motions in general. It's so very, very difficult to make a record. And so most of the time what happens is you're just waiting until you get into voir dire, until you get into jury selection. You have an actual panel in front of you and you're asking them questions about what have you read? What have you seen? You have to tiptoe around things, because if you say too much about, did you see this particularly damaging thing? Now you're poisoning the entire pool. So it's just this very, very difficult process that's, almost never successful. So shifting it to the survey-based method, to me is just, it's a brilliant idea. It's a great idea because it does allow them to get some type of data, some type of actual, evidence-based information that they can point to and say, look, this community, not only do they overwhelmingly think he's guilty, not only have they been overwhelmingly exposed to all of this false and prejudicial information about him and about the case, but they're saying things like, because this is their community, the consequences if he were to be acquitted, and they're saying things like there would be riots in the streets. I mean, how can you have a situation where a guy can get a fair trial in that context? And so it changes the dynamic a little bit to where, yeah, okay, there's still bad press down there in Ada County. There's still bad press down there in Bannock County, whichever county you want to pick in Idaho. But they don't necessarily have that hometown pressure, to come in and deliver that conviction for the home team. So everybody feels safe and secure and case solved and all that.
Now, Andrew, if I can interrupt you again here, because I want to enhance this discussion of this great point you're making. So in trademark law, which is where I spent a lot of my career, surveys are a big deal. And one of the most frustrating aspects of litigation over the admissibility of surveys is just how poorly articulated the standards are. And it's a problem in general in trademark law because judges end up really pretty much winging it and going where they want to, and then finding rationales for it. But it's going to make criminal law practice a lot more expensive, because inevitably there are going to be challenges to the surveys. You're going to have a whole new world of Daubert type proceedings going on. But one of the things that I'm hearing from you is that I think it's convincing that in all these high level cases, it's going to be demonstrated that the level of prejudice is really substantial. And courts are going to have to wrestle with the fact that forever they've been wrongly, or let's just say they didn't have a ground for it, but what everyone knew to be true was true, that these motions should be granted, and that they've got a problem because it has the potential to really upset the apple cart of criminal law administration, because a lot of and plus it's going to create a lot of perverse incentives on the part of the defense team.
I have a weird question. Could there? Oh, thank you. Could there ever be a case that's so big, or so well known, that it would be impossible to have a change of venue. You know what I'm saying? Like a truly national scandal, whatever the case may be. Obviously, something like a Trump did something, or somebody comes to mind. What can be done in that case where there really is no? Where do you change the venue? Like, let's say Bin Laden, was still alive and he got arrested now. Where could he feasibly be tried?
Dearborn.
Well, I mean, Eric, you're making a good question, because the big kind of just fake presumption that underlies all of this is this idea that, well, just because the jurors heard something about it or read something about it, it doesn't mean they can't put that aside and still be totally fair and impartial and judge the case based on what they heard on the evidence. One of the things I really like about what Bryan Kohberger's team has done, not just with this survey, but really from the inception of the case, they've really focused on the psychology of decision-making and how this stuff actually works. It came up through the course of the gag order and just a lot of those different kinds of processes. And really, chipping away at this idea that, well, as long as you get a juror to get up and say, oh, I can be fair and impartial, that therefore there's no problem with it. So it's one of these areas where the science of this is it's light years ahead of the law on it. We just had a decision from the U.S. Supreme Court within the last few years that the Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, the Boston Marathon bomber, his case went up to the U.S. Supreme Court on this issue of pretrial publicity, and essentially the defense was challenging the steps that were taken to kind of qualify the jurors and rehabilitate them and stuff. And the U.S. Supreme Court has just reiterated, basically, no, as long as the jurors say we can be fair and impartial, then they can be fair and impartial. And that's pretty much what you're stuck with.
Yeah,
so
it ignores reality, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it does.
It completely ignores reality.
The whole jury system ignores reality.
True.
Nate, come on, you've probably been in front of more juries than anyone else in this discussion.
As a defendant? No.
That's what I was told. I understand. I'm not even sure he's really a lawyer.
I never. This reminds me of I don't know if you guys remember the police shooting in New York. Amadou Diallo, where the cops were, and so they were going to hold it in the Bronx, and the NYPD's the police union for the NYPD did a survey about, how does people feel about the case, and come to find out, like, everybody believed the cops were already guilty and should be. So when they went to court, they were like, we need to change this venue because the jury pool is just so overwhelming, because the news media, it was so overwhelmingly, and they moved it to Albany, and the cops were acquitted in Albany. So it does make a difference on, especially where you're at and how the local media portrays the story. And in that case, the local media had essentially said the cops were guilty of murder, and when so it had to be moved. So.
You know what? I was just thinking, this goes into the very fabric of our nation, I believe. John Adams defended and successfully the British soldiers who did the Boston Massacre, if I recall.
Yeah.
And can you imagine what the venue was like for them?
Mm-hmm. Of course, I didn't know. They probably didn't have any places to move it to.
Well, no, they didn't. But I think about, and I wish Norm Pattis was with us this week, because he talks about how he pretty much is just trying to reach the juror. Like, can we talk? Can we just talk? As in, he assumes that they're already going to be against him, already hates him, or whatever else. But
everyone hates Norm, to be fair.
Well, okay. Ron for us.
I love Norm.
Are you working with Norm on Joe Biggs?
No. I'm working with. I'm not working on the Biggs trial at all. I'm working on litigation that arose out of that expert report, actually, on behalf we're representing Dan Hull. You don't even want to go there. But I know Norm pretty well. I was on a show a few times. I think he finally put that to bed. But I mean, I've tried that approach in jury trials. Let's really talk. I know juries are such freaking black boxes. I mean, this whole industry of jury, jury consulting. I mean, I think some people have actually had good results There's some very weird things, some rules that came out, like about a decade ago. You can't look up, you can't look up social media from the Vanilla Men, or maybe it's of the chosen juries. I mean, like really weird stuff. I mean,
yeah, we do that.
Different.
Yeah.
I think it's in the New York, in the New York, maybe in the New York federal courts. It just seems to me it's just such a crapshoot. I mean, you can't do enough to convince your clients not to have a jury trial if there's any way to avoid it.
Well, I've never trusted juries. I've won cases that I didn't think I should have won, and I've lost cases that I didn't think I should have lost. You just never know what a jury is going to do. And at the end of the day, that's the uncertainty that brings people, the sides, to the bargaining table sometimes to work out deals. We used to ask questions I came up before social media was what it is now. One of the questions that we used to like to ask when I was a younger prosecutor was like, what kind of bumper stickers do you have on your car? Because you feel like you can perhaps glean something from, if whatever they have on the back of their car, whether it be political, what have you. Today, there's not so many bumper stickers, but everybody's got a Twitter account or an Instagram or Facebook. So
Sure.
It's literally basically the same thing, except you get more information now, obviously, about them. Prosecutors will actually, we get the list of the people that are the potential jurors, the veneer, and prosecutors will actually run criminal histories on them. I can't do that. I can't run a Georgia or National Crime Information Center background check for their complete arrest history and things like that. But prosecutors do it. It's not fair at all. And a lot of times they don't let the other side know that they have that. So
I was going to say they don't disclose that either.
They should be made to disclose that.
Let us share it.
Yeah, here's how you find out. It's like, okay, that they stand up. Okay, juror number 5, you said that you've never been arrested. However, isn't it true that back in Michigan you were convicted of child abuse or whatever the case may be? And they completely just get them excused because they run their criminal history.
Well, you know what? You were bringing up the Twitter account, and I haven't talked about this on this show or others, but there was a huge brouhaha over hiding likes. And I actually personally, I like this because, okay, first off, I'm going to explain what it is, because a lot of people misinterpret it as saying, what do you mean hiding likes? Because they thought it was like YouTube. Remember, YouTube hid the dislike button so you wouldn't see that 3 million people dislike Mr. Beast's latest video. Twitter is not hiding the likes, it's hiding who did the likes.
Right.
And I think that that's actually a good thing, because it encourages people to interact more with the tweets, feeling safe, because there are those who use likes as a bookmark, or they might just like that particular moment. But then all of a sudden, 2 years later, it's like such and such liked this tweet, and it's used to harass or humiliate them. And I think that doesn't help the discourse.
Now I feel free to like all of your tweets.
Finally. I can get Phil to like them up. Andrea, what have you thought about any of that or known any?
No, I can't say that I really have. I mean, I do think that there's just, it takes away that very interesting just social pressure of the likes, the virality, how much of that is fed by just knowing how other people are responding to something, in a vacuum. I would say great, because it means you're going to get more authentic responses from people. They aren't just following the crowd or whatever. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Nate, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I think Elon needs to get engagement up on the platform, and by hiding who liked, that's going to increase engagement, because like you're saying, you can like something now without it coming back to bite you. So I think it's a good business decision move, but I would have rather liked to see them. But I think for him, it's a smart business decision move. You want people to interact with to show those impressions.
Yeah, I think, and it's funny because it would be nice to see, who did they like? Do they really? But I want the engagement to go up. I think that the more robust the conversation is, the better it is. And having the likes hidden is kind of like the vote. When somebody walks in, they don't have to say they voted for A or B, having the anonymity of the vote is a kind of an important thing.
And I think you get a true representation of how people really feel, because there's some things like you say now I don't like because it's maybe the person, like something Candace Owens to say. I won't like her stuff because I'm like, I don't want people to say Nate's liking Candace Owens. I'm like, all right, but
that's exactly why they changed
one particular thing.
Yeah.
Because people were going through Musk's likes and saying, "Oh God, look, he said this is bullshit."
No, totally agree. Okay, so what was it? Oh, I talked about a case last week, and it was it was a shocking deal where there was a doctor, ER doctor. She went to Disney World, ate at a restaurant at Epcot, and died. And she's suing them because the claim, she had a severe peanut allergy, and they were supposedly a safe restaurant. They advertised that they were safe for allergies, blah, 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 blah. She passed away. Seems to me to be a traditional, pretty common type of a lawsuit. You offer something, somebody dies, you're going to sue, whatever, and we work it out. Disney, in whatever wisdom, had stated, "Oh, but your husband has a Disney Plus subscription."
Your husband, they said to the dead lady.
Yeah.
Remember, he was suing. I've only done 3 videos on this.
Oh, that's all. Okay.
No. I'm not trying to correct you, but just to be clear, they didn't say it to them. They said it to the estate. He's suing. The husband is suing, but not personally. He's suing as representative of the estate. So they said to the state, they made a motion to compel arbitration. Back to you, Eric. Why?
Because he signed up for the trial of Disney Plus, and part of the I guess the boilerplate or whatever, the things that nobody reads.
A click wrap.
They actually were trying to claim that watching a streaming service affects 100% of Disney properties and products.
Your entire relationship with Disney for the rest of time.
Yeah.
So if a Disney satellite falls out of the sky
yes.
and kills your entire family, well, you had the Disney Plus.
But
the good news is
on this.
Yeah. The good news is I think that the publicity backlash, they've dropped their claim in this. So I'm happy to see that,
and they were probably losing subscriptions like crazy too. People were like, "Yeah, I'm not signing up."
Oh yeah,
yeah. You know that the bottom line.
I don't need that pay-per-view.
Better off just paying her and selling this and moving on, and not tarnishing their brand any
Disney
further.
Probably has actually a strong defense here, unless there's something that has so far not come out. They seem to actually merely be the landlord of this restaurant.
Yeah.
And there might have been some extent to which they listed the restaurant as an available, but it's a rather attenuated relationship. And it probably has very little to do with deep pockets, because both the restaurant and Disney have insurance. Inevitably, the restaurant has to indemnify Disney, or its insurer has to indemnify. It's not about the money. What it is about, and it worked for the plaintiff's lawyer, is to get some heat and light on the complaint. And it does look like someone at Disney's law firm, which again might have been chosen by the insurer here, thought they would make this brilliant bolt from the blue move, and it did not sell well. And Disney does not need more bad news, including legal news.
No, they've got a Snow White problem right now.
Yeah,
they've got it. Well, and imagine they managed to turn Snow White into a Palestine-Israel problem. Can you freaking imagine?
How does this happen?
Because the actress who plays Snow White,
she's woke.
She's a complete renegade idiot. She is both young and dumb.
I auditioned for Pocahontas, and Nate is going to be Snow White, and all is going to be well in the universe.
I'm perfectly fine with that, but yeah, no. The lead actress decided to go after the Palestine-Israel issue when the evil queen is being played by an Israeli, for God's
Gal
sake.
Gadot. Yeah, it's got.
Yeah,
Gal Gadot.
Gadot. So it's like Disney already had enough problems with this female before, talking about how Snow White, the original, is really about a guy stalking a female, and it was so
creepy rape culture.
Yeah, that was, which is like
Weird.
Prince Charming. Is
Weird.
What
Yeah.
the hell?
That was before Tim Wolf.
Now, okay, I saw this other case. Okay, here we go. Yeah, that works. Somebody said, "I'm looking for the word imbecile." Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. I'm not even going to get in political. She's just stupid.
But but can I just point out, she has really made a festering problem for Disney, because what I'm hearing now, you know, I'm kind of in this crowd with the Disney watchers. I do Valiant Renegade show a couple of times a month, and I'm hanging out. And I also represent those guys, so I'm more interested for someone who has not been to Disney World since the Carter administration and doesn't go to movies. I'm not particularly interested in Disney, but I follow a lot. But from the Kulturkampf point of view of it, I'm fascinated. Apparently, there's a burgeoning rumble of a boycott by the woke of Disney because of how they're treating their sister in Solidarity at the hands of the mean genocider Gal Gadot. Okay, well, this is exact. I mean, if there was ever something calculated to make sure the Jews who run Hollywood want nothing more to do with these people, it's a perfect storm all around. And the irony is, of course, that none of these people give a rat's ass about any. They care less about politics than Andrea Burkhart. Okay, they care about
saying a lot.
This is culture, though. Hold on,
It's
this is culture
and
versus
it's
politics.
money. Yeah. It's money. So they and this is threatening the bottom line. This lady is poisoned, but you know, the message is just coming back. They didn't renew the Acolyte.
Star Wars.
In the Star Wars show, which was like all woke, nothing, all woke, no narrative. Anyway, I don't want to.
That case is going forward. Is anybody following that? Gina Carano's case?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. Motion to dismiss.
I've actually done a few of those videos as well.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
It was a really good opinion by this Obama-appointed judge in the Northern District of California. Disney did not defend on first. Disney could have challenged the Unruh Act, which is what she's suing under. Remember, only don't try this at home, folks. Your employer can almost certainly sue you for whatever stupid ass political views you have, unless you live in California.
Specifically,
because in the early '60s in California, they passed a law to protect communists. From blacklisty type stuff, and now it's blowing back up in their faces. So, you know.
Well, it's great. I mean, because she got them in a trap. She was being treated differently. You know, you had a perfect A/B scenario. Yeah. She would tweet, her co-star would tweet. They were in the opposite ends of the spectrum. She gets fired, co-star's fine. You know, however you want to look at it, it was disparity, in my opinion. Now, I want to go back to Snow White. Another thing that apparently, you know, a debacle with Snow White, I saw it in the chat, is what happened with the little people. You know who the biggest, he's not that big, but he's definitely
he's the biggest little person.
He's the biggest little dick out there. Peter Dinklage screwed over his peers. He literally, this is the most well-known dwarf in the world, very rich, very famous.
He eliminated 12 potentially at least scale level employment gigs for dwarf actors.
That's correct. I'm not kidding. And so then Disney, in their wisdom, they created, how do I put it, a diversity dwarves. And when the previews came out, everybody's like, what the hell is this? They eliminated them. And now they're CGI-oriented dwarves that kind of match the original. So little people got screwed out of work. And I mean, how many things do you have out there where you quite literally, there's a diversity. Look at this.
Yeah, they weren't little people anymore because dwarfs were not PC, so they weren't living in cages.
What's wrong with dwarf?
Well, but that's what I'm saying. This is because of Peter Dinklage, and that's why I mean, he should be shamed to the end of time because his character is Tyrion Lannister, who is a dwarf. It's written in the book. It's a
He
dwarf.
made a
Only
boatload
reason
of
he
money
got the job is because
yeah.
he's a dwarf. So he's 100% acting on the fact that he's a dwarf, playing a dwarf character. But yet, when it's other dwarves who want to go, get some work, screw them.
It's literally Snow White and the 7 dwarfs.
Dwarves.
Well, this is Snow White and the 1 dwarf and 7 normal-sized people.
Snow White and the diverse, right? No.
They got one guy here. Well, they're keeping it one. There's 1 dwarf. So
I think that Disney's about $500 million into Snow White or more. I can't wait to see how much money they lose on this because right now only one thing is succeeding for them. Apparently, Wolverine, Deadpool, Wolverine, whatever, has been a huge success. Apparently, has nothing woke. Apparently,
it actually goes after all the
action.
It goes literally. I've watched it. It goes after all the woke narrative. It just throws it out there. It's the problem is that I think Disney and a lot of these companies forgot that entertainment was an escape from politics. It was an escape from the reality. So you go and watch this stuff, and I'm gonna be thrown in my face. I want to leave that behind. But they wanted to kind of merge the two. And after they did the first phase of the MCU, for instance, then they went super woke by having, gay characters and all
Captain Marvel and yeah.
And it's funny because like even now, like we were talking about the Acolyte before, like the other side is saying it's all because everybody's sexist and we all hate women and nobody wants to see women in these roles. But then they also have other shows with women like
Gina Carano, who got fired and everybody loved her.
No, but I'm saying, the Ahsoka show did well, and it's a very diverse cast lead because the story was okay, and people and they want to conflate having bad stories and make woke stuff with bad stories to woke stuff with good stories, and I think it's always have someone to blame, but right now all their IP is essentially horrified because they can't make any money. Like literally, they are losing money on every single project.
Look who they're run by people, and the majority of their employees who create all these things. These are the millennials, and then even whatever the next generation is after that. And so these are the people who are involved in making these productions, are the people who have grown up steeped in this idea that everything has to be woke. And so
let me add something to that.
Back to the way it was.
Disney is unusual because this is true of most companies, right? Disney is unusual because not only is it a creative place, right? Disney World and Disneyland, but especially Disney World, is one of the biggest employers, maybe in the country, of creative people, show business people. They have to staff all those shows, all those productions, all the people who have to play characters all over Disney World. Okay, so show people who can't get, gigs in Hollywood, or who want to live in Florida, or whatever reason, there are a lot. Remember the controversy over Gay Day at Disney World? This goes back decades. Disney World in Florida, which is, remember, the parks are the main engine of revenue for Disney, not the movies. They had a great run with the Marvel movies during the glory years. But the parks is where the action is, and the parks have a lot of cultural dominance at Disney. There are a lot of woke people with really militant views about, the trans stuff and the, cast a chicken maker gay, the whole thing. It's really deep into the company. So you can't just say, let's change management. This is what Disney is.
Almost like a Disney deep
Ron,
state.
It's an interesting question too, because the whole question of the culture at Disney, is it top down or is it bottom up, or somewhere in the middle? And, I'm not going to get too into detail for the privacy of all concerned, but I have a friend of a friend of a friend who was worked for Disney for a long time, was recently let go. And so I heard a lot about kind of this process and what goes on the inside. And there's this kind of Maoist sort of social score scene that happens like in the HR and just with the Disney kind of ranking of its employees and things like that. I found it was fascinating to me to hear about how all of this stuff works because you're getting grades, graded essentially based on things like your efforts for the team and just all of this stuff that just strikes me as a red-blooded American a little bit.
Well, I'm waiting for that.
Alarming. And I do. It does make me wonder because, of course, we hear so much about Disney will put out this version of the film in the United States and then they'll recut it, to change something that would be offensive for the Chinese market and release a different version in China and stuff like that. And so it makes me wonder about a little bit of a creep of these kinds of ideologies.
I had a theory about that, the advertising. And this is something that I want to do so badly. Because all these companies, they do these woke ads and everything here. But then if you go look at like their Middle East version, no way. And in China or whatever. So I think it would be such a great troll if people took the ads here using whatever it is, translate it into the different languages, and then pay themselves to share the ads with the rest of the world so they could have a nice universal message for everybody to see all around the world.
Well, I think as a business, if I'm running a big global business like that, I would curtail my ads for the location. Like, if I'm in Africa, I'm going to have Black people in my ads, doing different things than if I was
definitely not in China.
Sweden.
You'll remove them.
Definitely not in China. Yeah. So I don't knock Disney for doing that, but I do think here they want to push a particular agenda. And I think they've overcorrected the market and they've overjudged the market because, even people who love Disney stuff is now saying that it's all garbage because they're trying to force a message down people's throat. And I think that's and that's what essentially is going to bottom everything out, right? The bottom line. Are you making money? And if you're not making money, people aren't going to those parks, people aren't watching this stuff, then we're going to have to course correct and start making money.
They ran out of extra money. They were sitting on a cushion of extra money from the Marvel's movies. And they could throw it. They were literally piling it into dump trucks, literally, figuratively.
Okay, Rachel Maddow.
Throwing it into dump trucks and lighting it afire. They were green lighting projects that never had a chance at popular appeal.
Yeah, being
run and produced by people with utterly inadequate experience and skill sets, based entirely on DEI criteria. And you could do that for a couple of years when you're living on a cushion of billions in revenue. That stopped because the equity, if you tap out equity forever, you run out of equity. They were playing with capital, not interest. And now they have drawn that capital down hard.
The one thing I think that hurts Disney, I think, has done more to hurt their DEI cause than any other company, and I'll explain it in these two films, The Marvels and The Acolyte. They were both female-led directors. Now, if we go back, we can go Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was $1 billion film, great. We all loved it, right? Directed by a woman, great, right? And she had all this experience doing it.
Sucked.
Yeah, the second one sucked, but the first one that got the second one, it's a $1 billion film. Yeah, but that's $1 billion film. Then you had other female-directed sci-fi movies that did well. So Disney then did the Marvels. They said, okay, we want to have the first Black female do it. That movie crashed at the box office, the worst movie ever. And then they did The Acolyte, where let's have a first woman direct the Star Wars series. That crashed. But now, the reason why I'm saying it hurt the cause is because now you make it harder for the second female to get, because they'll say, well, look, we've given it 3 chances and they've all failed, instead of trying to get the best person for the part. And if it happened to be someone who's female, then you open up the door for other females, just like the Wonder Woman director did, open up the door for other females. But I think if just hiring for diversity's sake is a disaster waiting to happen. I think Disney's experiencing that right now.
That's exactly why women should not be voting for Kamala. I was thinking that when I was watching her last night. I was like, if she wins, we may not see another female president for 30 years.
But the idea, if she wins, is to get us closer and closer to the golden spot of our having nothing to say over who's president. We're pretty much there already.
No.
We're overtly there, Ron. We're overtly there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The president, the
in with her
elected
opinion.
president of the United States, is not running the country. That is crystal clear to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now the Democratic candidate is not someone anyone voted for.
Correct.
As much as I love this topic, I've got a jet. I got a ball. I want to say thanks to everybody for hanging out. Eric's got this is one of my favorite shows to do when I can. So have a nice weekend to everybody in the laid back law community and to you guys. Well, now that Joe is here,
whenever I come, he leaves 3 minutes later. Whenever time I get here.
Well, I can't leave until Joe gets here to make sure things stay under control. So, with that, I want to say thanks for having me, Eric, and everybody enjoy your weekend.
You too, man.
Nice.
You too.
Good afternoon. Good day. Good weekend.
Good day.
I killed his dog, and he won't forgive me. He won't forgive.
By the way, another case came down the pike. I completely forgot about it. Have any of you been covering this Las Vegas case of the politician? Now, I don't know if you guys remember. It was a video that went completely viral. A murder was captured on a Ring camera, where a guy was walking along and he had like a straw hat on and an orange vest, and he murdered somebody, and it was literally captured. And it turned out that they arrested this individual, and he's actually in trial right now.
I haven't looked at the case.
Robert Tellez. Yeah.
I've heard about it, but I can't speak on it because I don't really know the details.
He looks like he's killed more than one person.
He's a killer. Huh?
Yeah. Well, let me. Actually, no, I can't share it because you can't show anything that could be spooky or scary. So, okay, we won't bother talking about that one. I just didn't know if anybody had covered that. It's totally slipped off my radar. I think it happened in 2020, and now he's finally on trial, and we'll see what happens. I saw this one, which I thought was
Hey, well, what about the one in Detroit with the judge?
I talked about that last week, but yeah, go and fill us in. It was a field trip gone very bad for a girl, right?
Yeah, so they had this environmental not-for-profit was doing a field trip, and they were like, we're going to do the field trip to the courthouse. So they take a whole bunch of kids ages between I think 14 and 15 to this field trip. Now, one of the students in the field trip happens to not. They said doesn't have permanent housing, which is the new thing for homeless, so doesn't have permanent housing. So she goes in there, and they're sitting in the gallery watching the court proceedings, and she drifts off and falls asleep. The judge then screams at, since he starts screaming, hey, you get up, wake up, right? She wakes up, apologizes. Court proceedings go on. Remember, she's not defended, she's just literally sitting there. She falls asleep again. The judge gets upset again and tells her, wake up, blah, 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 you sleep again, has her leave the courtroom. So she leaves out the courtroom. Then they bring her back in. She sits down there again. She was 15. She sits down there again. She falls asleep again. So then the judge has her handcuffed, put in prison clothes, and stood up in front of the judge. And then he berates her, told him that he's gonna put her in jail and this. So then now the judge live streams all of his stuff on YouTube, so you can actually find it. Kenneth King from Detroit. All his stuff is live streamed on YouTube, so you can see it. So obviously he has this viral moment. So he does an interview saying this was scared straight because she was disrespecting the court. This then came out where people actually saw what happened, and now the judge has been removed from office. Good. He's being sued by the family, and he has been fired from his teaching job at a law school, and he has been removed from the docket by the chief justice of the court system there, because they said essentially what he's being sued for, what the county's being sued for, is false arrest because it's not illegal to sleep, false imprisonment, and a whole bunch of charges with the judge and the security firm that's watching it. But the rebuttal to all of that is judicial immunity. The judge in his courtroom, he's doing this. So there's an issue of whether they can get over the judicial immunity piece of it. So their argument is that this isn't judicial immunity. She wasn't a plaintiff. She wasn't offended. She was sitting in the gallery. She had nothing to do with the case, and her sleeping didn't disturb the proceedings. But the judge this was an extrajudicial situation where he went out of his way to get somebody from the public. So that's going to be the fight.
Hope this is almost a perfect case to maybe get rid of judicial immunity. I mean,
oh, keep dreaming. Keep dreaming. Judges are not getting rid of judicial immunity. They created it. They are not going to give it up.
I would love to see it happen, though. I mean, I would love to see some way to get that removed, because that's a horrible abuse of power, in my opinion. And maybe I'm too old-fashioned in my mindset, but I personally feel that people who know better, for example, I think that a person committing a crime should be punished. A person committing a crime who is, let's say, a cop or a judge, and they know the law and they know the crime, I think they should be punished even more so, because they're acting in willful acknowledgement of the law.
It makes sense. My feeling. What's particularly frustrating is not like this individual had a choice about being there. It's not like they could have just leave. It's it's if the person's voluntarily walking into the courtroom and they are exhausted and the judge thinks it's disrespectful and admonishes them, so you can understand that the judge is basically saying my room is not a place, my courtroom is not a place for people to fall asleep.
Which is fine. Kick him out.
Right, kick him out. But this is a student. This is a student who has to be there. It's not like they can just leave and go somewhere else. I mean, presumably they're directed to be there by their school and their teacher, and they're exhausted. So what do you want? I mean, like it's such an egregious abuse of power that it's just it just makes you shudder, because you think about how this judge likely exercises the judicial power in countless other ways as well. It's just
he's not a indicator. Yeah, he's not a king. He's a judge. This is a judge. And like you say, he could have just said, go outside if you're going to sleep, that's it. But to lock her up, like, there's no probable cause to lock her up. There's all of it. This is obviously
she's not a criminal. She committed no crime.
Yeah.
Didn't even think anything close to it. So, but he's saying contempt of court, that type of thing. But
contempt of what? Come on. And by the way, this asshole he is contemptible. There is sometimes I feel like
that should be a defense. That should be a defense to contempt.
Don't you agree? I mean, if you are acting in such a manner, then you deserve contempt.
Yeah, justifiable contempt. I love it.
Oh my God, it's horrible. Okay, well, here's in the military, one of the I used to be in the Army, but one of the ways that people would screw over, how do I put it, others, and it could affect them for the rest of their lives, is to put in paperwork saying that they're dead. To be
try to get undead. Try to get undead through the bureaucracy.
It is a brutal thing. However, there is an individual in Kentucky who broke in and hacked into the registry system and declared himself dead to get out of paying child support.
Yeah, crazy.
Wow.
Think about that for a second. So this guy, he owes his child support $80,000 to repair the state death registries, and he's going to prison.
Yeah. Well,
$195,000 worth of damage. But I was blown away by this story, that somebody would actually declare themselves dead, because I remember what a complete nightmare it is. If you're declared dead, I mean, no Social Security, no benefits. It's nearly impossible to get any kind of credit, to get anything else. I mean, it's on the level of having your, stolen identity.
This reminds me of the case with the football player, Ray Khalouf or whatever, who got his baby mama killed because he didn't want to pay child support. She got pregnant and he was like, I don't want to pay child support. So he had her killed and lost his NFL career. Yeah. It's like child support is getting people killed and having people fake their own deaths now.
Well, this is better, because at least this person faked his own death.
Faked his own death. Didn't actually get the woman killed.
I mean, I'm always a believer. I think it's Adam Carolla who said it, but anytime somebody wants to do a murder X, and the other, just reverse the order. and you know, it's probably better for society. No, I don't know. Anyway, that story is completely bonkers that happened. Here's
Just
one.
Goes to show how criminals don't tend to have a great ability to think things through to the long term.
Isn't that sort of nature's way of evening the scales, that, you know, because they're irresponsible, they tend to get caught and things like that.
Short-term strategies versus long-term strategies. I think you can learn a lot about human behavior and motivations and stuff if you look at, somebody acting with a short-term motivation or a long-term motivation.
Yeah. Okay. Now, speaking of long-term, short-term motivation, whatever, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Elon Musk had to just reveal the actual owners of X, because we know that he put a ton of his money in there, but he's not the only one who has a piece of it. And as part of this case with the employees, remember, he fired a ton of people. Mm-hmm. He had to reveal all of the owners, and there's quite a few. One of them, very interestingly, is Sean Combs.
Ooh.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes.
But that makes sense, though, because he had to raise a ton of money to buy it. So.
Yeah.
He's also got a Saudi prince in there. And many Bill Ackman.
But you know what, though? One thing about this, though, is that the company was public, then he made it private, and he would probably just sold his shares, privately instead of a piece of the company privately. That's why you got this big list. So if they make it public again, then these people would just probably have congruent shares.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and yeah, you know what? You're right, Nate, that he kind of did like a reverse startup.
Yeah.
Because isn't that sort of how the startups go, is, they start up a company and then they go through funding rounds. He took it private and they kind of went through a funding round, I think, to get whatever money he could back, even though they've lost 70% of the value of X at this point. Doesn't mean it's, completely out. But I just thought it was interesting that all these people who are involved, and that probably would be quiet if it weren't for these lawsuits from all the employees.
Yeah, I'm thinking these lawsuits are because those insurance payments on that cash must be crazy. So I'm assuming he because the advertisers all leave. And the weird part about it is that I like Elon when Elon said, they actually didn't change their moderation policies really almost any. He was like, the moderation policies are still the same. Well, why are all the advertisers leaving? So it was kind of a weird situation where he said he was going to make it more free speech, really didn't change too much, but then the advertisers, but I think perception is more based in reality versus perception.
Because a lot of times the rules are written in ways that are very neutral, but the application of those rules based on who's in charge as to how the ramifications manifest.
It's different.
That's a good point.
It's very different. He's saying what he has to say. I'm not representing him in this matter. I'm not privy to discuss, but I can tell you as a very active Twitter user, it is obviously different. First of all, there is less censorship of conservatives as such. True. There's also there is anti-hate rules are literally not enforced when it against anti-Semitic accounts or tweets. It's literally not enforced. And I can tell you that under the old Twitter, they absolutely were. Not always, not success, but there was an expectation that because if I'm going to be on, I'm not making the argument about what the platform should be. I'm saying that if the platform has rules, and those rules say that if someone is denying the Holocaust or whatever those rules are, I'm entitled to take advantage of them. Okay. And I would report, harsh and if people just don't like Jews, I'm not so crazy about Jews either. But if the really nasty stuff and the elimination stuff and the genocidal stuff, and the whole basement Nazi scene, that is essentially completely green lighted on Twitter now. I don't know that it's official. I don't know that they're not prioritizing it. It is different.
So you don't.
It's, by the way, it's immensely better. Twitter is an immensely better experience now than it was.
And it's not.
Can I ask you then? If you were advertising your company, saying what you're saying now, and would you then advertise on YouTube or Twitter if you could only choose one of the two, or one of the other Google products? Because that's like been the argument for the advertisers, right? All of this stuff is up there now. Now we don't want our stuff next to
the only real argument on the advertising seems to me to be the collective action, and there my firm is involved in that antitrust suit, so I can't say anything.
Oh, no, yeah, I'm not talking about the collective action. But
that is the only real claim, because any individual advertiser could, Now, having said that, those accounts don't tend to bubble up very high, except for a couple of really notoriously bad ones. Not even Nick Fuentes, because he's really kind of a clown at this point. Yeah. But this guy Jake,
oh yeah. He's a fighter.
MFA fire, whatever it is.
Shields?
I mean, there are a couple of really
Jake Shields.
Jake Shields, and also, I mean, frankly, the stuff that Candace Owen is saying now.
Wow.
Yeah, but didn't her father-in-law came out and made statements against her? Like, this is getting crazy. Like,
well, Candace, come on, guys. Nate, you and I have talked about Candace Owens.
Yeah,
goes all the way back to Social Autopsy. No. I mean,
all I'm saying is that I'm answering the question as an advertiser. If those people are going to continue to be boosted, and which they are, I might very well not want. If indeed you buy this argument, I'm not so sure this argument actually makes business sense. Now, again, as an advertiser, I have a moral opportunity to make a statement about what platforms I do and don't want to support.
Of course.
But do I think, does anyone really think, other than activists who everything is political to them, that if a Buick ad pops up in a thread that has Nick Fuentes in it, that Buick is therefore supporting anti-Semitism?
Well, obviously not.
It doesn't.
On the
It doesn't have to go to that level, though. I don't think. I mean, just the fact that there's an association now. I don't necessarily want that association.
I'm asking, is that really an association, or is that something that we are so?
Well, if somebody is scrolling through and they're scrolling through this and then they scroll through that, I would argue yes, that is an association. It may not be a meaningful one, or one that was intentional, or one that was engineered or anything, but it is gonna create a connection.
So everybody remember Adpocalypse on YouTube?
Yes.
When that's exactly what happened with Adpocalypse. On the front of some of these videos, a Coke ad would show up, and then the video was about anti-Semitism. And then
Ron, there are people at Media Matters, for example, who have do nothing, and sit there and follow the most virulent accounts, and then keep hitting refresh until that ad shows up. Then they screenshot that and say, "Hey, GM, you're supporting this. Hey, such and such, you're supporting." So that is.
By the way, it's done not nearly as effectively, but it's done on the right too. And there's all kinds of advocacy that goes along those lines, and I think these are legitimate questions for us to explore. These are hard questions. You can toxify, is that the right word? Any platform.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You can make any platform toxic, and the thing about Twitter is that it is, relatively speaking, the most open among. Not counting the loony bin
4chan
collections.
Right. We're not going. Yes.
So
mainstream. We'll say it's the most.
So the question is a matter of policy.
Platform.
Do we want to give activists like Media Matters the power to force these purported associations, and therefore decide? It's a kind of terrorism.
Yeah,
it's a kind of, and I mean, we do know this, that who the terrorists really are, who the vast majority of anti-Semites on Twitter are anonymous, and very few of them are probably really native English speakers. There's a lot of social discord that is generated by them. And there are a lot of people who have an incentive to generate social discord on American social media.
Sure.
And on the right in particular.
But I do want to make the distinction. I don't think my issue is ever with the way or their censorship. It's just letting me know what the rules of the game were. Like
and
on
applying
YouTube,
them
equally. And that's always been our problem.
A good faith run it equally.
Yes. Yeah. And that's always been my problem. It's, you apply the rules differently here, and and nobody knows what the rules are. And I think X has kind of gone too far the other way. But my issue wasn't what your rules are. It's just let me know what they are so I can apply them equally in those situations.
I think that X is trying to settle because there was a spell. It's gotten a little bit better, but there was you mentioned the ads, a Buick ad or whatever run. I've seen it countless times where I will go look at somebody's tweet and then I go to the comments, and by the third down, it's like completely irrelevant injected crap.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is prawn even or borderline, like sex-oriented material and things like that. And I'm like, now I think that's lessened a bit because it was getting really out of hand there for a while. It seems to have backed off some, but I don't know. There are good things like community notes. I think is a good tool. I really like what they've done there. I hope they keep doing that. I actually participate in it. But the same way that community notes could come about, people could potentially flag ads that are on accounts and maybe help self-correct. Let the community heal that, and then they could present that to the advertisers that okay, this account that is spreading this virulent garbage is in effect demonetized on Twitter, or we just don't run ads on that account. If that makes sense. I mean, what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, doesn't Elon always say you get freedom of speech but not freedom of reach?
Yeah, Yacarino said
generally
that.
do this. They would suppress them based on this. So I'm assuming that's what they're trying to tweak now, where accounts that they feel maybe edgy, you won't get that reach. But just maybe it hasn't been working as they want it to work.
I think it's actually working better than they realize. I mean, other than a big name account like Candace Owens, who gets retweeted by people I know, I don't face these horrible messages. I don't see them. I've managed on my way to, unfollow people who put up something weird. It's like, if I'm sitting there looking at my feed and there's suddenly NSFW material, I'm like, oh, quick, unfollow that person. Why are they retweeting that or whatever? But in general, I don't see a lot of that, except when people are being critical of it happening. I'm curious about your feeds. Are you seeing a ton of virulent hate of different kinds?
Well, remember, I get involved in a lot of Israel discussions.
So yeah,
you will. Yeah.
So that brings out some really creepy people.
Fair enough.
And I'll give credit to Nick Fuentes and to some other people, and it's not necessary to name them, but people who are pretty obviously not friends of the Jews, who at least use their names.
Like Richard Spencer and that ilk.
Richard Spencer he's
There's a name I forgot about years ago.
But I mean,
Jared, was it Jared Monroe?
I can deal with these guys. It's the creeps that really amount to hate spam, and these are the ones who tend to really be retweeting the protocols of the Elders of Zion type stuff and stuff about the Talmud that is just so ignorant and dishonest and wrong. And there are a lot of people with a motivation to do that, but I do think that's damaging. And I think again, there are lots of things about living in a pluralistic society that are damaging. There's lots of risk of exposure to people being, and all things considered, I'd rather have the freedom than not the freedom. But going back to what Nate says, what are the rules? Tell me what they are and apply them broadly.
By the way, it's Jared Taylor, guys. Jared Taylor. Jared Monroe's a perfectly fine person, worked for Stephen Crowder. But Jared Taylor, who is a well-known figure, I guess, if you will, of the alt-right. If you're ever interested in the whole alt-right adjacent weirdness, Michael Malice wrote a book called the New Right a few years back that really does explore these people from the really toxic ones to less so. Because one thing I can say.
Go ahead. Sorry, Eric.
I was going to say one thing I could say about the right wing, even though they're accused of having all these poisonous figures, believe me, the right does not like the Richard Spencers. They don't like the Jared Taylors. They have no use for these people and clearly disavow them at every turn. I don't hear them. You know, as Ron said, how many people do you know on the right? You're obviously conservative that say, yeah, I really like Nick Fuentes. I want to have him over for dinner.
No, it's a way to kind of overgeneralize the fringe extreme as being the mainstream, and the left has their extremist on the left, you know, from Antifa to whatever.
Farrakhan.
So, and
Farrakhan. I was exactly going to say Farrakhan.
Farrakhan is extreme, definitely.
Yeah. I'm gonna tell you, I spent like an hour and a half on locals this week where I was explaining the Talmud stuff that Ron referenced is some of the most hurtful in the sense that and I try to explain on locals. I went into detail for an hour and a half explaining one of the particular comments of one of these, you know, they put up these meme block things about quotes from the Talmud and stuff like that. There was a video also of a rabbi talking about something completely inane and innocuous, which was just slightly misquoted to paint it as if like Judaism embraces or endorses PDF files, and it was so backward, twisted, and sick. And I was trying to explain to my audience, it's kind of like with Trump and the whole very fine people hoax, where it's like, you know, they take a tiny little clip and of him saying very fine people, completely removed from its context, where immediately beforehand he says, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis, you know, but they're at that rally, there were some very fine people, and it gets spread it starts from people who really hate Jews, and then people see that clip, much like they do with the Trump thing, and they don't go investigate further. And it's much harder to investigate when you're talking about something with Talmud because everything's in Aramaic. So it's harder to find. You have to work really hard to find that clip because it's not a clip in a 5-minute speech. It's a clip in a 2-hour speech out of an assortment of hundreds, if not thousands, of 2-hour speeches. You have to work hard to find it. But when you find it, that little nugget, and then you mistranslate it, no one's going to research it any further. With Trump, it's very easy to research it and pull up a clip of that speech and find it to have it debunked. But no one who's going to sit there trying to research what the heck Talmud says and really look into what that rabbi, for example, is.
Well, Joe, it only took him 4 years to debunk it. You know,
and he still hasn't. Look, you know, just this week, Biden was claiming he said very fine people, even after Snopes says it's complete BS. And so it's like that's what becomes like the most hurtful thing because they say the most disgusting, complete lies. That like, and it's not just lies about someone you like, it's lies about your life and who you are as a person, and it's generated by people who really hate Jews, and then it gets shared by people who very innocently, vast majority of them very innocently have no idea that it's a lie. Because it's a culture that's foreign to them. There's no way for them to really research and understand what is being said. So they just, and if I saw something like that about a culture I was unfamiliar with, I'd be like, what the hell is that? That sounds really creepy. That sounds really sick. So I think it ends up being shared by people who are in good faith raising questions and have no way of actually debunking it the way you can with the very fine people hoax. And it's about a topic that is very near and dear to people like me and Ron who actually are living that lifestyle. And it's basically saying that lifestyle embraces the sickest, most disgusting, awful things in the world. And that's why I spent an hour and a half on my locals, just the people who wanted to see explaining this is what that rabbi is talking about. It's not even a conversation about sex or about crime, whatever. I could spend another hour talking about it, and I don't want to do that here on a panel. It's not appropriate. It's not the appropriate forum.
Yeah, for an hour and a half. But I've
already been talking too long now.
The shock is that it took an hour and a half to just explain that simple thing to all those people.
Because
and
the whole legal concept I had to explain.
Stuff.
It was a whole legal concept I had to explain. And it was just like, I was like, oh my God,
The fact that you have to explain means that they already won.
Yeah, that they've
Yeah, exactly.
That is
Exactly.
the sad truth, and they know what they're doing. The people who spread these, that cherry pick, it is a very specific, deliberate, and then as you're explaining it, they'll just say, "Oh yeah,
he's
protesting a little bit too much here." Yeah, we know what's happening there.
Yeah,
and that's I feel for you, and you know what? I don't understand the culture and the language and stuff. I personally, so I avoid it because I same way I avoid talking about Ukraine and Russia because I don't speak either language. I can't read it. I'm not on the ground. Kind of like this is out of my depth. So I personally avoid the topics. I have a partner who very much will talk Israel and everything's like that, but I don't personally. But on that note, time to wrap things up. Andrea, what do you have coming up?
Oh, like I mentioned at the top, we've got the Brian Koberger hearing coming down next Thursday, I believe. So I'm going to be live streaming that. I have been very, very quiet on my channel for this last month or so. It's been summer, guys. I've been having a great time. It's been wonderful, but I am getting ready to gear back down into some things. The really big thing I have on the horizon is I did book my trip to Delphi. So that trial, the Richard Allen trial that's going to be happening October to November. I am going to be there for that. It's not going to be televised. So that's one of the reasons why it's going to be important to have boots on the ground and get good information, about just what's transpiring in that case. It's such a wild one. So I'm getting ready for that, getting those kinds of plans in place, figuring out, my logistics and everything and how all that's going to work. But those are some of the things I have on the horizon.
Awesome. Nate.
Well, because so many of you have asked me to look at the recent motion to dismiss in our friend Nick's case, I've done a video and just breaking that particular thing down. And I don't think it's as bad as some people are saying. I don't think it's as great as some people are saying. So I'll just give my opinion on that. And then obviously I have my videos of Tiffany Hinyard, who I'm surprised she still hasn't been arrested yet. And the fun part about the whole Tiffany Hinyard story is so many people have now taken that story and run with it. Like it's like blown up nationally. So it's interesting because the one thing I always find interesting about a lot of these stories, if Tiffany Hinyard,
you made it blow up nationally.
Yeah, I get like 500,000 views on that story.
Every video.
because you know what? The other night where I was doing a live stream, I had like 12,000 people watch it, which is insane. But so I was like, where are you guys from around the world? And you have people from Singapore, from literally all around the globe. Matter of fact, most of the people watching was from around the globe. And their first thing and the reason why they say they love this story is because they didn't think in America we would have politicians worse than they're in their own country. And these are African countries too. I'm like, you really think they're like, yes, she is worse than our people here. So I was like, okay. So that's why it's like resonating all around the world. But
we're number one.
We're number one in everything, even corrupt politicians. So,
hey, I'm thinking that Louisiana's happy.
What happened in Louisiana?
Well, okay, because they're known as being so corrupt. Whatever. It went way over your head.
Number one is Illinois.
Number one. Well, Illinois and Louisiana kind of go back and forth.
I thought Jersey was the worst.
They did a study on the most federal prosecutions and political prosecutions for the and Illinois came out number one. And
Interesting.
Yeah,
I bet Boston's way up there.
It could be. I have to find.
Oh yeah. Well, there's got. I mean, actually, I'll throw another one. How about DC? You can't get much more corrupt than that.
No, fair enough.
But that's the middle of the swamp.
Ron, what do you have coming up?
Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing. I'm just playing it out at this point.
All right.
He's waiting. Yeah,
I'm waiting for Joe to come back to town. I don't know what to do with myself. He went away. He's in some fancy place for the summer. I don't know. He doesn't invite me up or anything like that. And I'm waiting for him to come back so we can hang out again. It's
You're welcome to come here anytime you want. We're happy to have
you. You're just not going to tell me where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have an election coming up. That's basically what I have. I've really gone like full into politics. I'm fascinated in covering the development of Kamala Harris with her complete lack of any policies. I was walking my audience through yesterday, the difference between a speech and a policy. It's, when if you break down everything she was saying, it's like, I'm going to fight for the middle class. We're going to bring justice. These are just slogans. These are not policies.
Unburdened by what has been.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. These are
She
just
is
slogans.
unburdened by policies.
Because America is a place for great stories, and this is the greatest story ever. It's like, how are you going to do any of these things? And everything that she said has either been a regurgitation that people like. The things she said that people like are regurgitations of Trump. And the other stuff she said, as far as policies, every expert in the field has been like, oh my God, this is disastrous. This is Venezuela all over again. So I think that's, and I'm trying to explain that, saying I'm going to stop the border crisis, that's a slogan. Saying I'm going to build a wall is a policy. It's like, this is how I'm going to effectuate that. That's the difference between a policy and a slogan. And if you look through everything she's saying, that's why people are saying, where the hell are your policies? And I think they're going to try to avoid having her issue policies as long as they possibly can.
Joe didn't know any of this shit a year ago, folks. Okay, the transformation of Joe Neerman into this political streamer has been such a phenomenal adventure. This is what the drive for content does to a man.
Well, speaking of drive to content, I talked about this last week, and wow, everybody came through. I'm really happy to say. Started a new channel called Proven Conspiracies.
Ooh.
It is literally that. It's we know about all the different conspiracies out there, but a lot of these things really did happen. MK Ultra really happened. There's something called the Church Committee, where throughout the 70s they were in front of Congress with Operation MK Ultra, Midnight Climax, which is one of the 150 sub projects. You had Operation Northwoods that happened. There's Operation Mockingbird. Anyway, all of these are on this new channel that I've created. They're short videos, 10 to 15 minutes ish, in time, breaking down the conspiracies, highly edited works. And it's going to not only include the government ones that I just mentioned, but I'll also be stepping into things like the Phoebus cartel, which was a light bulb controversy in the early 1900s, where all the organizations literally got together into a cartel to price fix and create planned obsolescence, which is something we have till today. So I'm really proud. 1 week later, I'm over 1,000 subs, which is a great start. I appreciate it very much.
Even better than that is you have more views than subs on both of your first two videos. This is a great, quickly growing channel. I'm going to urge each of you there. He obviously, from what we see here, has 3,700 views. He needs 300 more views to be monetized. You just need to click his video for like 20 seconds, get rid of that boring crap, move on to the other one. And I'm sorry.
Whoa. Stop.
No, I don't mean that. Obviously, I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. The point is that he just needs 300 views to be
more
monetized.
than that, Joe. They're 15 minutes. I need 4,000 hours. So anyway, it's going to be a minute. Please check them out. Share with everybody. Probably tomorrow, Operation Mockingbird will be coming out. That, those who are following these things, that's a huge story. That also was covered by the Church Committee. CIA was quite literally paying off reporters and infiltrating newsrooms, etc. It affected the Washington Post, the New York Times, all over the place. And in today's world of, quote, fake news, guess what? This has been going on for a while. So that's what that channel's about. That's what all the videos are about. I'm very proud of it. Nate, I know he's checked them out. He's given me guidance on the side on how to improve things and whatever else, but I'm very proud of it, and people seem to be digging it. So
you should be. It's good stuff. So I like it.
He's awesome.
So yeah, and it there is a link in the chat. I just put down. There we go again. It's called Proven Conspiracies, and it won't come up on a search yet. And I'm not going to blame YouTube for suppressing it at this point because it is new. It's only a week old. It takes some time before the channel comes up. But if you're ever searching for something and it's a channel name, just click down the filter and then hit channel, and it will come up there. Hopefully, it'll just come up more frequently. But
you should
redirect
this. You should redirect the stream over there. Some people finish it. They end up there.
I can't without a premiere. I'd have to have a premiere or a live stream in order to do
really.
that.
I redirect all the time.
You
you have to
the
redirect to a
anticlimactic
live.
nature of this discussion is
It's
just
perfect.
epic. Epic. We're getting into
All right.
I
Well,
miss you, Ron. All right, now you can come.
On that note, everybody, thank you so much. If you like this kind of show that we had right here with this amazing panel with amazing people, you can subscribe right here. There's a button down below.
Not to like.
Subscribe. Do it every Friday at noon. I've missed one Friday, I think, in 2 years. So we're keeping it going. And if you like it, subscribe, and we'll see you